Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Linderman and I am the artist behind Jennifer Linderman Art, and today's video is a painting of a dog in Tombow markers and acrylic ink and a little bit of Posca acrylic markers and also color pencil. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello everyone. This is going to be a tutorial on how to paint this cute dog in using Tombow water-soluble markers and also acrylic inks, and then at the end I added in some color pencil and some Posca acrylic markers for just some final details. I just wanted to show you the finished product ahead of time so that you can kind of see the direction that we're headed. So at the end of this video, I basically, once I finished making the video, I thought, you know what, this could use a few more last minute details. So you'll see once you get through the tutorial that at the very end I was like, oh, I'm done. But I actually then looked at it and I was like, oh, you know what, it would probably be cuter to add in, or just better to add in some other like textural lines like for the tree. So I did that in color pencil. I just used like a Pablo colored pencil, and then I went through and added in sort of some little Christmas lights, because based off of the photo there were some lights in the tree, so I just thought it would kind of pull it all together better just to add in these few last minute details. And I think you'll agree once you finish and then realize, oh yeah, that probably was a good idea. So and then I added in a little bit more of the floorboard here, just to frame it a little bit better. So yeah, I just wanted to just show you quickly also what I was talking about when I mentioned using Posca markers. These are just these acrylic markers. They're awesome. They come in different nib sizes. Some of them are like, this is like a medium-sized nib. They also come in fine tip nib, and then they come in really big, like big, if I can get the lid off, like these like chisel nibs, which are awesome for making, you know, really broad strokes. Trying to find one that was even a little bit bigger, and then this is sort of like their biggest like round nib. So I do like using these work really well with color pencil. I mean, you can just go back and forth with acrylic, or you can, then what I mean is that you can put the color pencil on top of anything acrylic paint, acrylic markers, this kind of thing. I think it adds a real nice, interesting, more dynamic touch to your pieces. And then the brushes I mentioned that I was using in the tutorial were just these three. This is like a Filbert print from Princeton. It's called Velvet Touch. I really like these brushes. I love the Filbert size because it's like a round flat, so you can use, you know, make strokes on the side or on, you know, flat, more like a flat brush, but with a little rounded edge. Then of course I use these round brushes quite a bit. This is the Princeton Aqua Elite. You know, it doesn't have to be these exact brands or lines of paintbrushes, but just these are the ones that I've worked with for a long time. So, you know, I know how to work with them, and I can basically say yes, that these are nice quality brushes. And this is again just a smaller round paintbrush from Princeton. So, oh yeah, and then these are the two different acrylic ink brands that I use. So I use the Amsterdam one, and then I use the one from De La Rowney. All of these supplies I just got at Blick. They can also be ordered online from Amazon as well. And then last but not least, I will show you the paper or the support that I was using. So This is a Canson. It's called Mixed Media Artboard. This is a little bit bigger size than what I used in the tutorial, but it comes in like a bunch of different sizes, and you can see that this is really nice for acrylic, watercolor, pen and pencil. Yeah, color pencil, watercolor, any wet media. It actually takes, the reason why I like it is that it takes a lot of washes without affecting the stability of the support. So it just looks like this. I don't know if you can see the thickness of it, but that's the thickness of it right there. So it's not too thin and it's not too thick. There you go. I think you can kind of see it a little bit better right there, but you hear that? It's pretty hard, very stable. Yeah, I really love using that support if I know I'm going to use a lot of washes. I mean, watercolor paper works well. Also, you just have to make sure you have a really thick, like a 140-pound or 300-pound weight for the watercolor paper. Any mixed media paper honestly would work, but I feel just because I like to go really juicy with these kinds of well, with this specific medium, I wanted to make sure I used a support that could, not disintegrate or buckle basically underneath all of my wet washes. So yeah, that's a little introduction as far as finished product and all the different supplies that I used. Let me know in the comments what you think about this tutorial. If you enjoy it, I can certainly put together more tutorials. I am starting to have a little bit more free time over the next month, so I just thought I might try to fluff up my YouTube channel with some more interesting tutorials. So yeah, let's jump into the rest of the tutorial. And I did it. It's like my first voiceover attempt at making a YouTube video, so you'll have to excuse some, I don't know, some mistakes or shortcomings with the lack of experience in doing the voiceovers, but I hope to get better at it the more I do. So yeah, I think that's enough talking from me, and hopefully you'll enjoy watching me paint this dog, and maybe you would like to paint this dog as well. All right, hope to talk to you later. Bye bye. Here we are. Here is my puppy that I'm going to draw, which is for the Oakland Animal Shelter. They're having like a fundraiser campaign, and I volunteered to be one of their volunteer artists. So I decided that I would record the drawing for my first like voiceover style YouTube video. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Anyways, I decided to use these Tombows, so I went ahead and decided on a few colors that I might want to use, which were sort of like, ranges in the tan and beige and a little bit brown colors. So what I first did was I'm looking at sort of the darker places, and while Tombows are very much like watercolor, where you're gonna wanna, with traditional watercolor, you definitely would want to start with like lighter colors first and then build up. But with these Tombows, I've learned that you can kind of go over a little bit on the darker stuff as long as they're not too dark. So this is sort of more like a mid-tone range. I'm just trying to sort of map out where some of the darker tones are, and then I'll just fill in the rest with the lighter colors. So I'm just kind of going around and looking at where, some of these furry bits, fur patches are with the darker tone. This paper that I'm using is really cool. It's a Canson. It's not really paper per se. It's a Canson line art board, and it's really cool because it's actually like really hard. It's like it feels like really thick cardboard, but it's made for wet media. You could use oil, acrylics, watercolor on this style of substrate. And since with the Tombows I tend to like to go really juicy with my water, I try to use a support that can accept a lot of wet washes. Yeah, so the thing with the Tombows is that they are technically water-soluble markers, which means you can lay in a section and then later on use either like a water brush or just a regular paintbrush and dip it into water. And then you'll see later what that will help to kind of smooth out or reconstitute parts of the marker. It's not gonna like smooth it out completely like you would with regular watercolor, you know, where you get like a real smooth, flat looking wash, because I wanted to leave some of the textures still in there where the, you know, the first strokes are. So yeah, just kind of going through here, and now I'm bringing in sort of a little bit of a lighter tone, a little bit on top because I want those to kind of blend in with the Tombows. And yeah, I like to, especially when I'm just starting off with something, definitely I like to have like a plan, I guess, a little bit. Just because these marks really don't, you know, they don't like fade away or disappear with the water. They do, you know, some of these lines still stay behind. So this is why I kind of like to choose a few colors and have a little bit of a plan ahead of time. And then later on, when everything gets kind of, you know, squished together with the water, then I can sort of decide, oh, maybe, you know, I want a different color and to add in there, because the effect is quite different, I think, compared to traditional watercolor. Yeah, and I forgot to turn off my notifications before I started recording, and I also forgot to just, you know, unlock the settings so that my photo would just stay in place. So you'll see me having to, you know, turn off or swipe away some notifications, and then keep on waking up my iPad so that I can see what I'm doing. Next time, hopefully, I will remember to do those things. But anyways, this is I'm using a Logitech StreamCam webcam for the recording, and I wasn't sure how the quality was going to be, but it seems to be doing okay. I've been struggling with, you know, trying to decide if I need to upgrade with my technology, because I do a lot of online classes, and so I was doing some research, and looks like people use camcorders a lot for recording. Anyways, that's just a side note, just trying to fill in the time while you watch me, you know, add in these strokes. So yeah, maybe I'll just stop talking for a minute until we get to the point where I'm going to start using the water brush, because that's where it gets pretty interesting, I think. This is just me, you know, adding in a bunch of colors. I mean, because if you don't have excuse me, if you don't have a bunch of colors down first, then when you go on top of it with the water brush or water, it's just going to desaturate everything. So you have to make sure you have a good amount to work with before you know, break it down. It's kind of like if you're going to use any kind of solvent with any sort of art material like Gamsol with colored pencil specifically, which is what I've started to like to use. You have to have, you have to have something to work with, right? So this is why I'm going through and just, yeah, taking a look at where some different color schemes are, color patches, however you want to call it, and putting it down so that when we bring in the magical water, we will have some good times there. I'm drinking my coffee right now, so you might hear me slurping from time to time. I recorded this last night and decided I didn't have enough time last night to do the voiceover, which I really hope this works out. All I did was push record and let her go, so yeah, we'll see how that works. I'll have to figure out how to like speed up certain sections while I'm doing the video. I guess I need to do like a little practice run with something else. So anyways, you guys are my guinea pigs, so I apologize for any mishaps or any weirdness that this might seem to have. Still just trying to figure it all out. I guess while we're waiting, if you guys are interested, I do have a website, and it's www.jenniferlindermanart.com, and you can go there and check out my website. Okay, here we go. Here's the water. Ooh, angelic sounds playing. I would play angelic sounds if I could figure it out. So you see here, I'm kind of rubbing back and forth. So now you typically wouldn't really do that with traditional watercolor. You don't want to really go rubbing back and forth. But with this stuff, I found like you have to kind of do that a little bit just with it's actually just because of the surface I'm using. It takes a little bit of sort of waking up the colors with the paintbrush, so I have to kind of rub back and forth a little bit, but I would definitely not do that with traditional watercolor because that's not how you treat watercolor. Watercolor does not like to be rubbed the wrong way, for sure. So yeah, this way you can just pull those colors into other sections and kind of fill in the white of the paper. And you can see how it's super duper wet. It'll dry pretty quickly. Well, I guess not pretty quickly, but just like normal quickly, if that's even a thing. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that if you want to keep the lighter colors clean, make sure you're going from the lighter colors into the dark. I kind of wanted to pull some of the darker, and you can do that too, like pull some of the darker colors into the lighter ones. So, it's basically up to you, but here I have to do a little bit of rubbing to kind of get that, because like once it sort of sits on there and dries, the pigment, you do have to do a little bit of kind of rough waking up a little bit. Well, what I've found is actually the darker colors reconstitute back to a smoother wash a lot more easily than the lighter colors. And I'm not really sure why that is, unless just because the lighter colors are, probably because they're a little bit more staining. Like in traditional watercolor, I know some of the lighter colors, like the yellows specifically, and some reds and greens and blues are pretty staining, and so Maybe that's why, or maybe it's just because of the way that they are put together in the marker. But as you can see, these darker ones do spread around a little bit more easily. So I'm trying to keep that little scarf section free. I'll do that at the end. And like with my colored pencil work, I'll tend to do the eyes first, but with this piece, I wait until, you know, a little after, like I've kind of squished some of the pigment together with the water brush, because actually this stuff is really sensitive to the water. So, you know, once you've reconstituted it and then it dries again, it is really easy to wake it up again. Pretty similar to watercolor, where you kind of want to leave the super dark colors to the end, because if you had dark colors on first and then you brought in the lighter colors, if you accidentally touch the lighter colors right next to the dark, then that dark probably would bleed into the lighter color. So this is kind of the opposite here. If I had put those dark black eyes in first, you know, like sort of color blocked them in as well, I'm pretty sure once I went in with my water brush, just because I do like to be pretty juicy with the water, that would have made the black bleed into the, like that creamy yellowy color, and I did not want that to happen. So that is why I'm leaving those darker, super dark pigments to the end. And yeah, so here we go. We are, there's one of my notifications, as you can see, from my son, telling us that he's coming back home from his skateboarding session so we can go have some burgers. No secrets here. Anyways, I'm going through now and sort of trying to deepen, you know, some of those darker areas. And this is just like a gray, like a mid-tone gray color. I'll use a little bit of a darker, like a black, a little bit later. But right now, I'm just kind of, yeah, you know, mapping out where some of the like darkest tones are. Actually, the way that this shows this image is, it's not that dark when you look at it under natural light, but you can actually see pretty well from this view, like where the super dark values are. And that's a big, it's one of my, I don't know, what is the word? It's one of my aspects of making art that I find is probably the most important thing of all, is getting those values in correctly. When I say values, I mean the relative darkness compared to the light, or the balance between the dark and the light sections in what you're trying to make. I mean, this guy, I could have done him like, I could have made him, for instance, like all purple, as long as I paid attention to, you know, where those really, really dark values are and where the lighter values are. You can turn your piece into whatever you want, use whatever colors you want, just as long as like I said, those values are well established. And it's more about, you know, it's not just, oh, okay, I can see his eyes and his nose and his mouth and a little bit under his chin and some parts in his ear are the darkest. It's not just a matter of that. It's a matter of like, well, maybe before I do that, let's take a look at some of the other parts of it which are a little bit lighter than that, and then backing out from there and just, you know, making sure you have contrast, right? That's what's going to make your piece more interesting. So yeah, I could go on and on about the value business, because I think it's like I said, it's like the most, I would say it's one of the most important aspects of making any piece of art, is just getting those values in. Of course, you have to start off, first and foremost, you do have to start off with a good drawing, because a good drawing is going to basically help you, you know, have a good end result. And I had a perfect example just recently of, I was doing this drawing of another pet portrait, and I drew it in, but I just was not happy for some reason. There was something that was off on it, and I kept on. It was something to do with like the eye section, and I just couldn't figure it out. I stepped back from it, I left it, I came back to it, and I was like, you know what, I'll just paint it in. Well, I mean, I completely fully painted it and still was not happy at the end of it, and that's when it went into the trash bin. I was like, okay, you know what, I need to start over. This is just definitely, I'm just not happy with it. And so that was a perfect example of, you know, making sure you have a really good base drawing to start with, because that's your foundation. That's what you build off of. And if you're not happy with that, then probably the person you're giving your drawing to is also not going to be happy with it. So that was lesson learned on that. And then, you know, sometimes the drawings initially work out really well. Like this guy took me like 20 minutes to just pop in the contour or a line drawing. It was just really easy to do. I think that other one I was talking about was just, it was a tricky perspective, and I was just having a hard time getting the proportions right, and that's where I went wrong. Anyways, back to the painting here. So I went in and added more, you know, more layers of colors, and then I'm going back in now with the water brush, right, and just awakening the pigments so that they can do what I want them to do. You can, there are two different ends on the Tombows. There's a brush end, and then at the other tip of it is there's a fine tip to the marker. So that's why I really like these Tombows, because you can either use it more like a paintbrush stroke, or you can use the other fine tip nib for more fine details. So yeah, I just decided that I was gonna, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I tend to use the brush tip end of it more, just because I know I'm going to go in afterwards with water to, you know, get this more sort of unrefined look. And then later on, actually, I'm going to bring in some acrylic inks to tighten it up just a little bit and give it a little bit more depth. I mean, the thing about the Tombows is that they are highly concentrated, so there are, I mean, I could have probably just done it all in Tombows, but you know, I am a mixed media girl, so I do like to use my other art materials. So yeah, it's just fun. Plus, because it's acrylic ink, it has a flowy nature to it. Anyway, so here we go. Ooh, did you like that fancy transition? So that previous layer dried, and now this is the acrylic inks. You can see some of the bottles. I use these. They are from Daler Rowney. You can get them at Blick. You can get them online on Amazon, or order them wherever. I also use this other brand called Amsterdam Acrylic Ink, and they're just awesome. They have really nice bright colors, and they act just like, you know, they're just really super flowy, even more so than the watercolor. So the thing is with the inks that they tend to be a little bit more permanent, so this is why I'm using these at the end, just to add in more details, because once you put the acrylic inks on top, this is where I'm not going to go on top with water per se, because it's ink, right? So I'm just committed to just painting and deepening those values. So now I'm just going through and putting in different colored, sort of like these orangey tone with a different style paintbrush. I think I'm using a Filbert paintbrush there. I actually just discovered how much I love Filberts. I'm like, duh, I should have been using these type of paintbrushes for a lot longer earlier, because I love they have like flat and round, or like a flat round paintbrush, and you can use the side of the paintbrush to get, you know, thinner strokes, or use the flatter part for wider strokes. It's kind of like the all-in-one paintbrush, honestly. And they come in all these different sizes, like really small or medium or bigger, and yeah, they work really well. That's all I'm trying to say. So I use this brand from Princeton called Velvet Touch. And the other paintbrush I like to use is also a Princeton one, and it's their Aqua Elite line. And those work really well with the wet, like watercolor mediums. So yeah, the thing about the different kinds of brushes with the different kind of mediums, they are made for a certain reason. Like the watercolor brushes are made with very soft, typically soft bristles, so that a lot of water can be absorbed up into the bristles, right? And that's the point, is to have water, or something that can contain a lot of water, or maybe not a lot of water, just depending on, you know, your abilities to manage the water control. But for instance, you wouldn't want to use a brush that's meant for acrylic or oils with watercolor, because you won't be able to hold as much water, and you won't be getting this flow with the strokes that you want. So just make sure you're using the right tools for the right mediums that you're using. I'm a self-taught artist, so I had to learn a lot of this on my own. Also, after watching lots of YouTube videos that these lovely, awesome people just post all this wonderful free information, that was how I was able to gain my base knowledge. That, and hoarding a lot of art supplies, and buying a lot of books, and a lot of time spent learning these different things, and yeah, now I can go and teach others. So yeah, I hope this is a helpful tutorial for you guys, and I hope you're having some fun learning and watching. I haven't seen a lot of people using the Tombow, so that's why I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll do a Tombow tutorial, and, you know, this way I can also learn myself on how to better manage the medium. Let's see, and just a little information for you guys. I do so on my website every Friday, Pacific time zone, because I live in Oakland, California. I run from 1 to 3 on Fridays. I have an art class, and you can either sign up on a weekly basis or the subscription rate, which is a monthly subscription rate, and that's a little bit cheaper than the weekly rate. So, I mean, they're not that expensive. They're 2 hours. Sometimes I go longer just because I want to, or yeah. And we have a really nice, fun group of artists who join us every Friday, and we have fun and we learn a lot of stuff. There's a big focus on color pencil, but we do some mixed media stuff. Our subjects are like animals and botanics, sometimes landscapes, sometimes like rusty doorknobs, you know, whatever you want to, however you want to call those kinds of things. So yeah, you should think about joining us. If you like what you see, then you can sign up on my website, which was, I know I mentioned it earlier, it's just my name, JenniferLindermanArt.com, and you can see, I think it's under the section that says Learn with Jennifer. So if you want to learn with Jennifer, you should go sign up. Let's see, what are we doing? We are darkening things. Now it's about refining, darkening. I know I'll add in some more colors on his chest with the acrylic inks a little bit later. Yeah, this is like a little, I guess it looks like a Christmassy kind of situation. So this is basically a free portrait for somebody who donated money for the animal shelter. It's their annual fundraiser, and I signed up as one of their volunteer artists. So this is my last one. It was so crazy busy, you guys. Oh my god, I was like, every like other day I was getting, here's another assignment, here's another assignment. And then I had to tell them or ask them, I was like, is there any way we can like back off on these assignments, because I'm like so backed up. And she told me, she's like, yeah, people are requesting you specifically to do their pets' portraits. And I was like, okay, now I understand why I'm so busy. I mean, it's totally awesome. It's actually mind-blowing that I've gotten to this point where people are actually requesting me to do art. Like, I mean, I worked as a nurse for many, many years. Like, that was my job. And then to see myself here, like 15 years later, doing art and actually teaching other people art, like, that's sort of surreal and mind-blowing. The teaching part kind of makes sense because I come from a family of teachers. Like, my parents were teachers, and when I worked in the hospital, I was actually like the floor educator to teach and orient new nurses coming on board. So to be teaching people things is something that is just a part of me and that I love to do. So that makes sense. But to be teaching art like that, that's kind of crazy because I don't have any art background at all. I just have a commitment to learning, I guess. So that's why, well, that, and I have sort of a, you know, a flexible schedule, if you will, since I wasn't working as a nurse for a while, because I started I had my kids, so I just kind of took a break from that, and actually we moved to Switzerland for 6 years, so there's that. Even though I did do a little bit of nursing there, I concentrated on trying to learn German, so I do know a little bit of German, but yeah. Anyways, coming up to the next section here pretty soon, where we're gonna finish this guy off. Ta-da! I know, sorry, I kind of went off on that little rant about my life, but I think it's sort of interesting to know a little bit about, you know, the person who's teaching you something. It's like, you know, why do they do the things that they do? Right? I don't know. I think it's interesting just to learn about people's backgrounds. So yeah, here I'm just, this is still acrylic ink. I don't think I use the Tombows anymore. I mean, I could, to kind of go in between where the acrylic ink was placed. I mean, I could go right on top of the acrylic ink. It's just that I didn't. You want to probably keep those colors clean, I guess, if you want, or if you want to tone them down, you can certainly go on top with the Tombow markers, just like with any paint. If you want to tone stuff down, you know, you can use lighter, or if you want to darken something, then you use a darker tone. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, this little scarf thing is cute, but I'm not gonna make it super, you know, exact. I'm just gonna kind of put in some shapes and colors where I think that they should go. Yeah, there goes the picture again. Hopefully that's not too distracting for you guys. Yeah, and then after this I'll bring in sort of a darker green tone to kind of fill in the in-between. And then later on I kind of use some white, and it just sort of blends a little bit with the other colors. I almost turned this into a different color scheme instead of the red and green, just because I'm in more of a hot pink and like gray. I thought would be kind of cool together with maybe a little yellow, but then I didn't want to get too off the theme that I was faced with here, in case the person I give this to is not a hot pink and yellow person. Like, that would be probably pretty upsetting or shocking, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, maybe next time. My favorite colors are like anything fluorescent, hot pink for sure, anything super bright. I love yellows and oranges, that kind of thing. I guess it's the 80s decade in me somehow that just I haven't ever been able to shake. So yeah, there you have it. And like all the stuff that I like to watch usually has like an 80s soundtrack, like Stranger Things. Love Stranger Things. I mean, I love it anyways, but I love it even more because it's all based in the 80s and the music is 80s. So, yep, there's another little piece of information about me. I love 80s music and fluorescent colors. Alright, so here we're just continuing to build the shapes. Pretty soon we're going to get pretty crazy with the background, with the tree. I'm going to show you a way that you can just, it doesn't have to be exactly what you see. Well, and actually the picture is kind of more abstract too. I mean, I know that it's a tree. I'm just assuming that it's like a Christmas time because of the little scarf that he or she is wearing. And then I saw, you know, behind him was something that looked like a tree with lights. So I'm assuming that this is a more holiday themed background. So I think this is where I'm I'm going to add in some white. This is all acrylic ink. I just grabbed a smaller brush. Yeah. And it kind of blends in with the other colors because the other colors are still a little wet. So you have to wait and let this stuff completely dry if you don't want it to blend with the previous layers. I mean, I actually really like the way that all of the inks kind of look in my palette. Like, that's, you know, you could do sort of like a little bit of a kind of a crazy flowy look with these materials, which is like really super cool. That's another day, another class. But anyways, I'm just using the dropper that's inside each one of these acrylic inks, and I'm just sort of dropping little blobs of this dark green color in the background. You can actually draw as you can see, you can make shapes with the dropper. I think I did do a wolf once with just purely using the insert to the acrylic inks. So that's kind of a fun thing to play around with too. Later in, I'll kind of like spread out some of these this ink, because it's not all like stringy looking like that, and I thought that was kind of a little bit distracting. So a little bit later you'll see I'll use a paintbrush and kind of blend in some of these parts that are more close to the fur, right? Because I wanted to push him forward more, so I'm going to use a paintbrush and especially right next to like the left and right side and the top of his head, like where it's a little bit more solid color, just so it's not so distracting. Well, so that it also kind of translate more as a tree too. So yeah, this stuff is going to be pretty juicy. So you have to be a little bit careful when if you're going to be doing things that are really juicy and wet like this, because sometimes I've picked up my board, just to take a look at what's happening there, and a big stream of the acrylic ink flowed right down the middle of my piece. And yeah, because it's ink, you cannot back off from that. You can't erase it. So you could either try to use a paper towel really quickly and just dab it up as much as possible, but then you would have to go over it with maybe some white, and then go, and you would have to it would just be a big mess. It would be a big mess. So be careful when you're using specifically these inks, because they do, unless they're thinner and not so thick, you can just see how thick that background is, that there's a likelihood that is going to maybe release itself and go someplace where you probably don't want it to go. So just word to the wise, be aware of that. I mean, and I thought about bringing in some of the green from the acrylic ink sort of tree, so that I sort of was like dipping into, not sure if I did it yet, but I will be dipping into some of the green and bringing some of the dark green tones into the dog, just as sort of a little bit of a reflection, but also like green and red make really good shadow colors because they are complementary colors. Even though I pretty much have the shadow and colors pretty well established, I think I just decided that I wanted to bring in some of those greens. You can see, oops, little drop there. I guess I decided I wanted to add in still some more darker, but more like kind of warmer orangey tone. So yeah, that's why I mixed that up. I think this is some of that dark green. I was trying to get sort of like a deeper, like brown kind of tone. And I think I decided, well, maybe that wasn't exactly the tone that I was looking for, but I did. So then I just started to put some of that in with the orange and a little bit of the, I think it's called like a Naples yellow. That was, yeah, I wanted to start building a little bit of the floor just to give it some perspective. I'm cleaning the brush in between, and then I decided to bring in some of that mixture. The orange kind of desaturated it a little bit, so it had a somewhat of a transparent effect. So I'm just building a little bit of the flooring there. And you can kind of just, you know, let some of it pool. The acrylic ink, you can let some of that pool like at the bottom to give sort of a natural, you know, differentiation between the different panels, I guess, in the flooring. So yeah, that's what I was doing there. I'll go on top of it though later with some of that darker brown to give it a better separation, but I was just trying to, I think what I was trying to do is break up some of that negative space, because it just seemed like too big of an open negative space, and it's also a way to kind of ground him or her a little bit more. So those are other things to consider, is, you know, taking a look at your negative space and, you know, deciding on if you think that those shapes or the composition is well established. You want to make sure that and when I say negative space, I just mean like the open sections, which are not a part of your painting or your drawing. You want to make sure that those are placed well, and that they, you know, sort of support what you're doing and not detract from what you're doing. So here's some white acrylic ink just to give a little bit more of a pop with the highlight in his eye. You got it. Don't forget about the highlights. And also, the one thing that I tend to really like to forget to do is whiskers. I almost forgot the whiskers on him. I forgot the whiskers on another one. It's like, because I leave those to the end, I tend to forget to put those in. So don't forget about the whiskers when you're doing an animal, please. I'm trying to also remind myself not to forget the whiskers, but I still do. And let's see, I'm just kind of now sort of brightening up some of the brighter parts with a little white, and I think now's the time for the whiskers. Whiskers are kind of tricky, because sometimes, you know, if you push down too hard, you get a little bit too thick. So but you can always tone them down with like some gray or white at the end. But I just wanted to, I don't know, it doesn't really bother me that much. If they end up being too thick, I could have probably used, once that all the material or the pigment fully dried, I could have probably gone on top of it with either color pencil or what else do I have? Actually, I have Posca markers, which are acrylic markers, so those would have worked as well. And I have markers which have a really thin nib, so that would have completely worked also. But I just decided to go on top with some gray, and that kind of just toned down the thickness there. No big deal, right? I mean, this is not like a super detail-oriented style exactly, so I'm not too worried about. Not too worried about it. Let's see, using Now I'm just trying to get that edge in a little bit better, or more defined, loosely defined, I should say. But yeah, I mean, actually, while the ink is still wet, you could use a water brush or a paintbrush dipped in water, and if you go right on top of that while that's still excuse me, wet, then you can kind of soften that up, but you have to do it really soon after you've put it down. Otherwise it'll just dry, and then once it's down, you can't reconstitute it. You can keep building layers though. That's definitely something you can do. All right, I think this is where I just wanted to put in a few more, strokes to illustrate the fur. And then I think this is where I decided to, because the dark green was still a little wet, I thought I could maybe pull it into some of the fur a little bit as a, just as a way to kind of bring in some of the background colors. So this is where I grabbed some of the green and then decided, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I think I'll bring that throughout. And I just dipped into super light because you don't want to like overwhelm anything. So I just did it in certain places where I wanted to deepen, just to add a little interest, bring in some of the background color into the foreground. So I usually think about that a lot too. Right, then it's not just this big blob of like the green in the background. We are coming to the finish line here, people. Just now taking the green, deepening it in certain places. Yeah, I'm just kind of playing right now. These are just like the finishing touches, and I'm thinking probably going to be hanging up the brushes here pretty soon. Can't remember what I was going to do. I think maybe I'm just going to sign it and be done with it. Yep, here we go. Time to sign your piece. And that is it. Ta-da! Done.